Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here today. Today is going to be one of the most important shows that we're doing. They're all good and they're all important, but this one really can affect your bottom line and your finances in a big way because we're going to start talking about inspections. And it's one of those things where you're thinking like, I have money and I'm going to spend my money and I only have so much of it when I'm looking at buying a house, and I want to make sure that my money goes the longest way. And so one of the things that people neglect sometimes is this thing called the inspection. And the reason that some of them say because I just don't have the money. I had a guy who was into construction, and he said, "Well, I'm not going to do. I understand this stuff. It looks fine. I'm not going to have the inspection done." And then you come to find out that there's some issues that could be within the house. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, what I want to talk about, again, like I do every single time, is the Black Wealth Housing Summit. If you go to the blackwealthexperience.org, the Black Wealth Experience, or you can RSVP, it is going to be on June 19th. That's the 19th of June, 2023. And we're going to do it at Cross Purpose. Cross Purpose is an amazing organization that helps people get back on their feet. But it is in the same parking lot as the AME Church on Colorado Boulevard and Martin Luther King. So Colorado Boulevard, Martin Luther King, the AME Church is on the corner. If you're from town, you know exactly where that's at. They share a parking lot. They're just down, literally on the other side of the building. We're going to do that from 5:30 to 7:30. Our goal is to start working on putting a plan together so that you can get into a house. What I know is that some of you are ready right now. Some of you are engaging, ready to get going, and you have everything you need to get into a house. You just don't know it. For some people, it might take 6 months. For some people, 12 months, maybe even 2 years. But you will walk out of there with a plan. We're going to put together with you a real estate agent, a loan officer, or a mortgage professional. We're going to have a credit person. We're going to have an insurance person. We're going to have, a financial planner. We're going to have some inspection team. We're going to make sure that every aspect of you buying a home, because what we found out is folks think that they can't buy a home. And that's not true. There's a myth out there that says you have to put 20% down. If you've been watching these podcasts, you realize you don't have to put 20% down. I say this in every single show, and I'll say it today. If you are renting somewhere and say you're renting for $2,000 a month, that doesn't seem like a lot. It's just, it is a lot, but it doesn't seem like so much until you start adding it up. So $2,000 a month times 12 months, right? $24,000 you spend in a year. That doesn't even seem too bad. Hey, I spent $24,000 to live here. Then you go and you do stay in that same apartment or that same rental place for 10 years. Now what you've realized is that you spent $240,000 on rent. The theme here is whose mortgage are you paying? Because if you paid $240,000 on rent at that complex, most likely 10 years ago they didn't spend $240,000 per unit to live there. So you just paid that off. In most houses, maybe if it was a $500,000 house, you just paid off half of somebody else's mortgage and you have nothing to show for it. You're paying 100% rent because you don't have anything to take with you. And I say this a lot too. I go to apartment complexes and I see, BMWs and Range Rovers and Mercedes and some really nice $80,000, $90,000 cars, Audis that are in these parking lots that are depreciating. And, somebody felt like I can't get a home. So because I can't get a home, I might as well go buy these cars. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have those cars. You absolutely should have those cars. One of the parts of home buying and the home buying experience is, we've been talking about, and you've heard real estate agents saying these are the things that you need to do. So, the first thing obviously is finding the home, putting an offer in the home. Now that offer gets accepted. Once that offer gets accepted, you're on this timeline because they decided maybe it's a 30-day close or 60-day close or 28-day close, whatever it is. You have that many days to get all your ducks in a row before they're going to give you the keys to the house, and the lender's going to give you the keys. Well, one of the biggest, most important aspects of that is making sure what you saw when you walked through it is exactly what you're getting, because people will do some great jobs. They can hide a whole lot of stuff with paint, right? And so today we have Shawn Williams on. And so Shawn is an amazing inspector. And I'm going to have him talk to you and walk you through why inspection is important, why it's something you don't want to avoid. Is part of that process. Yes, it's something that's going to come out of your amount of money to be able to do it, but he has some of the best prices for our community, because the goal is we got to get you into a home. Once we get you in the home, we need you to keep that home. and we need you to keep that home in good shape because, yeah, now it is your responsibility. You know, some folks say, well, I don't want to move because what if the water heater goes out? Well, that's going to be part of ownership. Way cheaper than what you're doing. You're paying for somebody else's water heater to go out when you're renting, and then, you know, it's part of what you're doing. So, Shawn, I know I just talked a lot, but thank you for being on today. We so appreciate you taking the time. If you could just start out with just telling people, you know, how to get a hold of you, what numbers to call, what emails to call, and then after you're done with that, kind of go into just this question of why inspection, you know, kind of what it is, what you go over, that kind of stuff, but why it's so important. So thank you again for being on. This is so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. Thanks for having me. My name is Shawn. I'm with Iron Phoenix Inspections. And, you know, you can reach me at a couple different places. First would be my office number, which is 720-500-2971. I also have a website, which is ironphx.com. And there's actually a great scheduler there if anyone needs to schedule an inspection. In addition to that, I have a lot of informative inspection videos that I release on Facebook at facebook.com/ironphx, and also on Instagram at you know, /ironphx as well. So please check those out, and you know, I'm here to help if anyone needs. And you know, as far as talking about home inspections, I can kind of jump into that if you like. I mean,
please, yeah, please do. Let's talk about it.
I mean, you know, home inspections are really important because, you know, walking through a house, I feel like people get attached to it, you know, with their emotions first. It's like, wow, I really, really love this house. And that's really an important thing. But what I do is I want to go in and I want to make sure that everything with the house is physically intact, you know, the actual property as it stands. There's a lot of distinctions. People kind of mix up the difference between a home inspection and an appraisal. An appraisal is really something that happens based on the location of the home and the value of the property. My expertise is actually looking at the condition of the property as opposed to the value of the property. So what does the condition mean? Well, I look for material defects, things that could, you know, significantly reduce the cost of, or the value of the property, and also things that could be a detriment to people's health and safety, you know. So my spiel is this, Brian. I'll say, hey, Brian, my name is Shawn. I'm going to be your home inspector today. When I'm doing a home inspection, I typically tell people there are 3 kinds of defects we're looking for. Things that could be serious or detrimental to your health and safety, or that could cost you a lot of money. Things you may need a contractor to help you fix, or the honey-do list of things that'll kind of keep you busy on the weekend. Of course, you know, all 3 will be in the report, but the number one thing we're looking for is health and safety items and things that could be detrimental to people's, you know, bottom line, or could cost them a lot of money.
Absolutely. So what just it's a couple stories that come to mind that have happened to me recently. My daughter does mortgage with, she's in California, and there was a property that was up for $1.5 million on a hill in the San Francisco area. And the buyers that my daughter's been working with wanted to offer 1.2, and you know, the sellers said no, we only take 1.5 or above. And they're going, there must be something going on here because this house in this area has been on the market for a long time. And so they said, well, can we get an engineer to come in before we make this offer? And they were kind of hesitant to let that happen. And then when they came in, the engineer came in and realized that the foundation on this hill, you know, had some issues that they had covered up. And the estimate was $200,000 to fix this foundation. And so without doing that, that could be, that person could move in, say everything's okay, then something else cracks, and now they have to come up with $200,000 to fix what they could have found out earlier. The other situation that I'm in, and maybe you can help out with this, is I have a brand new person that is from Denver. She grew up in the project housing here in the Denver area. She didn't ever, nobody in her family ever talked about home ownership or being able to own a house. In fact, those were the people giving her the advice on that she couldn't get a house. So she finally gets to this position where she's ready to get this house. And so now she finds the house that she loves. And just like you said, it's an emotional feeling, right? I love this house. This is my house. I can just tell the countertops are perfect. The bedrooms are perfect. It's that emotional tie. And I told her, as they're making this offer, the owners are saying, are saying, well, we want to do, this as is. You're going to get this as is. And I said, well, you can't, and it doesn't matter what the inspector says, where you just got to take this house as is. And my advice to her, even though you're so emotional, you need to make sure before that in that contract it says if the inspection shows something that could be detrimental to safety or health and it's going to cost me more than I have, then you need to walk away from the house if they're going to do it that way because it's not right. And so I told her to make sure that she called you, Shawn, and that they're going through this process, but don't let the emotions of that real estate transaction determine whether this house is right for you, because it could be, we're using down payment assistance, we're using all the tools in the toolbox to make sure she gets into this house as her first house in her 30s. But if let's say there's a hole in the roof that nobody saw, they kind of patch it up and it looked pretty, and then that's going to cost her $20,000. Where's she going to come up with $20,000 to fix this if it isn't tied to an incident? So exactly what you're saying, what are some of those cautions that you would advise people to do before they ever get to the point where they're going to say, yes, this is it, or how do they negotiate a contract in this situation as far as you understand?
Well, I often kind of frame myself as the referee.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell people what to do. I feel like, the real estate agent is typically going to negotiate what's important, but I have to have a very objective mind state as far as what I see and, factually kind of present that. When it comes to things like that, especially when people are so attached to a property, there are things they may not know about. They may not know about electrical wires that was from the mid 60s to the mid 70s that if they go untreated they can be a potential fire hazard. They may not know about the water heater, how to determine what age it is, or the furnace. They may not know about carbon monoxide hazards. There are just so many things, and when it comes to a home that I'm trained to know about. And it's very important that if you hire an inspector, even if it's not me, I want to do as much as I can and help as many people as I can. But realistically, everybody likes to make their own choices, and I understand that. But it's one of those things where I'm an INTERNACHI certified professional inspector. I'm also a certified master inspector. But if you're going to hire an inspector, make sure that they're certified. Make sure that they actually follow a standards of practice, because I actually have a standards of practice that I go through to make sure that people are protected. And in most cases, I'll exceed those standards of practice just to make sure that everything gets done and they're looked out for the best way possible. So, I mean, when I deliver a report, all those items will be in there. And there may be some things where they ask me, hey, is this a deal breaker? Is it not a deal breaker? I say, that's not for me to determine. Just about anything can be fixed. However, it's just about how much it's going to cost to get fixed a lot of times. So that's really what it comes down to.
Gotcha. So when you come in there, my name's Shawn Williams. I am your inspector today. What are you inspecting? What are you looking for? Like, kind of just take us through, I guess, the major parts, because if you told us everything you did, but like when you start in a house, what is it you're looking for? What does an inspector check for? What, like, in the different areas?
So when it comes to the standards of practice, I'll start at the roof, just kind of going top down. There's the attic. I'll look in there. I'll look at the framing members, the insulation, everything like that. There are a lot of different components of the roof you have to look at as well. The exterior of the property, is it properly graded? Is water going to shed away? Because water can be the enemy a lot of times. So moisture intrusion, not only on the outside coming into the property, but also at any plumbing fixtures, things like that. Any visible plumbing, of course, mechanical systems such as, furnace, water heater, and air conditioner if it's equipped. Garage, interior windows, pretty much everything that's in a standards of practice is something that I'm going to look at. Above and beyond that, there are also ancillary services that I offer. and that would be things like a sewer scope and also radon testing. I'll talk about radon testing a little bit first because it's pretty big here in Colorado. It's one of those things where it's very scientific. It's a gas that can actually cause cancer.
Oh,
So it's
whoa. Don't make sure that's not there.
yeah. So radon is actually a byproduct of uranium, and then it turns to radium, and then it turns to radon. So it's one of those things where it's a soil gas that can come into the house. It's more prevalent if there's a basement or crawl space, but high levels of radon could be detrimental to people's health. So a lot of people like to get radon tests. And if they have high levels of radon, they can get a company to put in a radon mitigation system that will actually exhaust the radon out of the property.
Okay.
So that's radon in a nutshell.
So it doesn't mean you don't have to live in the house. You can still, there's still ways to do it, right?
Yeah, you can still live there. They just have to get rid of the radon so that you
Okay.
can. And that's what makes it the safest. So that's radon in a nutshell. I won't geek out about it, but it's a big deal.
Okay.
The other thing is the sewer scope. And people like to do this because it's important on an old property or new property. I have had old properties that have had plumbing that is old and collapsing. And this is drainage plumbing that's going from the house to the main sewer. So with that being said, there could be things like, cast iron or Orangeburg plumbing, which is just really old stuff. And I've also done new homes where, there may be a pipe that's been crushed or collapsed or, kind of poorly installed or something like that. And there have been problems with sewer lines even in those cases. So, and the thing about the sewer scope, the reason why that's so important is because that's something that's buried underground and you really can't see it. So I actually have a camera that can go underground and actually look at that line and make a video and kind of let you know what condition that line is in.
Well, that's really cool because I think of like the old lines, like in my mom's house that was built in the '60s. The trees are huge, so the trees
Yeah.
get down there and they can pop the line. And then I've seen where they've had to, at some point, right after somebody purchased a house, now they're digging this big trench to get down to this pipe, and it's costing thousands and thousands of dollars to re-put a pipe in. Where I guess there's some things you can do if you can scope it and see that there's some issues. You can go right to that point before it becomes this huge issue. Or it could determine, like you said, you're the referee. But if I guess in the report, I don't even know if you get how much prices cost, but they called somebody, the local plumber person said, how much is it going to cost if this pipe looks like it's crushed? And they say, okay, well, it's going to cost $10,000 for us to go in there and fix this pipe. Now the borrower or the new homeowner that's getting ready to be can make that determination. Do I want to spend an extra $10,000 on this house at this time, or can I ask the seller to do it before it ever even happens? Okay, you're getting ready to sell me a piece of property that has a $10,000 problem. You should probably fix that because you're the one making all the money on this before I ever move in. If they don't do it, it's just their responsibility, correct? At some point,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and to be quite honest, like, you move into a house that has those kind of problems, those are kind of problems you don't want. Those are the things that you definitely want to know ahead of time. And if you can take steps to get them fixed, especially on someone else's dime, that's really the best thing to do. The sewer line is always a big area of contention when it comes to that, because if you can actually see it, it's like, okay, the sewer line, like a lot of times if I say, oh, the sewer line looks great, it's like, yes. That's what a lot of people say, because that can be a big deal if it's not.
Gotcha. Foundation is something I'll always hear about too. I mean, we're in Colorado. I mean, we don't have earthquakes. I lived in California for a while, and that was always a big issue. How big of an issue is our foundations here, and what kind of problems can it cause if they're not, if something's cracked or something like that?
Well, foundations are a big deal. There are certain parts of town that is worse than others. And I mean, it's actually one of those things where, my radar can go up pretty early if I know that there's a house in Hoffman Heights, Aurora. It's like, there could be some foundation issues there. I've been in many crawl spaces where, the foundation was not in good shape. Newer homes, they can still have foundation issues. There can still be problems, but we have expansive soils here in Colorado. So a lot of times with new homes, they actually dig really far. They dig down to the bedrock and put the house on caissons. which kind of gives it a lot more structural stability. So there aren't as many foundation problems as there used to be when they used to kind of build them right on top of the expansive soil. Of course, foundations, or structural, I should say, is partly the foundation, but you also want to consider something like the roof, which is a big part of the structure. Because if you have some problems with the framing and how that's actually put together, that is just as bad or maybe worse as a foundation issue that's not properly addressed. So, I mean, I always kind of have to take that approach that's multi-tiered, because I kind of see myself as a Swiss Army knife when it comes to homes, because there can be a foundation issue, there can be a mechanical issue, and there could be a sewer line issue all on the same house. So you
Wow.
never know. You have to really compile a report and give people those facts and make sure that it's important, but also you want to kind of keep people out of the weeds too, because it's like, hey, there's a screw missing in my grill up there for the return air. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it? And it's like, well, I just found some aluminum wiring out back. I think you could probably put that screw in, whenever you want to. So I think managing expectations is also extremely important.
How big are the reports? Are these like difficult documents? Like you have to be a lawyer to be able to read them, or is it just you? Because I can tell you're very thorough, And then I look at, is this like a 50-page report that I got to figure out? What's the process there?
Well, I mean, the report, I would say it reads easily, because it can be 50 to 70 pages easily.
Okay.
And then the standards of practice is on there behind that, because I like people to kind of know exactly what I inspected, and they can also see ways that I may have exceeded those standards. But when it comes all the way down to it, I always like to make it easy and readable. So anything that is like a big deal, I make sure I put it in red,
Okay.
so that they can easily say, oh, okay, this is a big deal. There are no carbon monoxide detectors in this house, and the furnace is from 1970. Like, wow, so we need to install those. And that's actually a law. Like, you'd be surprised how many houses I go into that don't have carbon monoxide detectors. So it's like, that's a big deal. That's something that should be in there, and that's in the red. But also, that door that won't latch or something like that, that's in there too, but it's not in the red. It's just in the back of the report. And it's like, oh, honey, remember page 36 of the report? You think you can fix that this weekend? You know what I mean? That's just something to kind of
I love it.
to keep the guys busy on the weekend.
Uh-huh. Okay, that is perfect. So when I think of, you know, this is going to cost me some money, is there like a range that you have depending on the size of the house, or is it a standard inspection fee? Is it, you're spending, I'm assuming 2 or 3 hours sometimes in a house, or an hour at least. What does that look like? What should I prepare for as a new, uh, home buyer who's getting ready to do this for the first time? I have no clue. I know I have to have some money budgeted. What does that look like?
Well, I typically tell people it'll take me about an hour per 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Right now, my fees are currently $350 up to 2,500 square feet for a single family home. And
Okay.
then for a town home or a condo is $300. But also, I like to, there's an additional charge for the sewer scope and the radon test, of course. So,
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, those are $150 for radon and $125 for the sewer scope, respectively. But you know, I have an online special just to kind of make it easy for people to be able to, sign up and kind of get all those services if that's what they want to do. But really, the time spent for me is just making sure it's done right. Like, I've been in homes that are, you know, 5,000 square feet that might take me 4 hours. I've been in homes that are 2,500 square feet that might take me 4 hours.
There you
It
go.
just really depends on,
Mhm.
what I'm looking at and how thorough I have to be, because I want to make sure that I get to the bottom of, what needs to be done.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is for 500 to $1,000 or whatever it is, and they're more closer to the 500 if it's, you're adding the scope and the radar and that kind of radon. I can have some peace of mind and some assurity that I know everything that could potentially be an issue with this house before I purchase it. You know, it,
Absolutely.
and when you think about how much that could cost you by not knowing, or there being an issue, like a foundational issue or a roof issue that's going to cost me thousands and thousands of dollars, that $500 is money incredibly well spent. And I'm thinking, and what I equate it to, and maybe, I'm not an engineer. I'm the person who goes, can you just tell me what's on the report that I got to deal with? Because I don't want to read that whole thing. And I know other people who will read like line for line. But I think about a car. Like, how many times have I gone to a car lot, when I was buying cars for my kids or something like that, and then it looks all pretty on the outside, and then you drive it home. Like, I remember one I bought for my daughter that, the guy came over and she just wanted this car. She just loved this car. And it wasn't that expensive. It was, a couple $1,000s maybe. I said, I don't know. We probably should take it to a mechanic. She says, no, I just want this car. I want this car. We didn't even get down the hill and this stuff was falling apart. And it was like, it's going to cost me more than we just bought this car to get it to work right. Or another one where there, it was great until it rained. All of a sudden, my head's getting wet while I'm in the car. Those are important to do, those inspections. A mechanic or somebody, I guess the older I get, the more important I understand what insurance does. But insurance still costs me money because I have to deal with something that broke. Why not be proactive and say, all right, I know everything. And then you have the ability, I think I said this before, you have the ability to ask somebody else maybe to pay for it. Are there any, like there's grants for down payments and there's grants for closing costs and there's grants for appraisals. Are there any places anybody can ever get a grant or anything to get inspections done? Or is it just that money I just need to budget and make sure that I do it?
I'd say it's just typically money that people need to budget. I have not heard of such grants. Okay. And of course, like, I feel like, my prices are pretty competitive. I mean, and then I'm also always adding, new services or improving services. So I've recently got a locator to, find my sewer line head. If like there's a break in the sewer line, I can actually locate where that is in the yard now and actually flag that area. So that's something that I'm going to be rolling out really soon, and just to kind of make it easy if there is a problem. The other thing, I just got my FAA drone pilot's license, so now instead of having to get on the super high roof all the time, I can actually use a drone to take pictures and images of the roof if I need to. So I mean, there's just always new and better ways to improve the service. And, of course, I just want to always, offer the best to all my clients.
So this is funny. And I already know the answer, but I still got to ask it anyways. You got this drone license, and I'm sure there's some restrictions and stuff, but, can we get you to hey, can you just check out my neighbors and make sure that everything is okay before I try to move in this house? What they got in their backyard?
I can't do that. I mean, sometimes I have had the bird's eye view while actually walking on the roof, and I'm like, oh my, but I can't say anything. I mean, I got to mind my business.
Yeah, of course. And that's what I would expect you to say. That's what I would want you to say as well. But it's just so, thinking, man, if I could know my neighbors before I ever move in, whatever they hide in their backyard. Oh my gosh, well, that's great. So please, again, we're going to do this the Housing Wealth Summit. It's going to be on June 19th with this actually Juneteenth. We need you to be there because, Shawn will be there. We're going to make sure that if you have questions about inspections, he's going to give you his number again here in a second. And, please call him if it's beforehand. Just if you're ready to buy a home, just plan on figuring out how you're going to do an inspection. My thought process, and a lot of other people say, well, I know a little bit about this, I know a little bit about that. Well, if you're not trained like Shawn's trained, most likely you don't know everything about everything. And he's going to find stuff and look for stuff and do stuff that is going to make sure that what you're getting into is exactly what what you're getting into. This is a portion that people sometimes say, I don't, it's okay. It's a new house, or it's okay. It's the person, I could tell the person who lived here before was very neat and tidy and did everything that they were supposed to do. What I'm saying is there's things that even me as a homeowner don't know and can't see and not care to. Like my roof and my house that I live in right now, you know how many times I've been up on my roof? I haven't been up on my roof. So I don't know what's happening in my roof because I don't go up there all the time, right? And so there's places and nooks and crannies and that kind of stuff that you need to make sure. To me, this is one of the most important parts of this buying process, is making sure you get an inspection. So, Wealth Bowl, June 19th, 5:30, 9:30, cross purpose. Make sure you're there. You are going to walk away from there with a plan on what we're going to do to get you in a home, because you got to be in a home, because it's whose mortgage are you paying, and we want it to be your mortgage. So Shawn, any last thoughts you have, please give us your name and how to get a hold of you and all those Facebook things. Again, we're going to put it on the screen as well. And under the screen, if there's any flyers you have, let me know. I'll make sure that I include into this podcast. So please just give us that closing information.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. Shawn Williams, Iron Phoenix Inspections. Please call my office at 720-500-2971. And also you can find my website at ironphx.com, and on Facebook /ironphx, and also Instagram /ironphx.
Gotcha. Any final words you want to impart with anybody about inspections or anything?
Inspections that help you know and love your home. Thank you very much for having me.